Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Kevin Britz. He's an executive coach, speaker, expert facilitator, specializing in high performing teams, people, and culture. He's the founder of Contagious Identity. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thank you, Ajay. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Kevin. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll be talking about how one can unlock human potential in the workplace. We'll talk about all this in. But first, let's understand a bit about your journey, your background, Kevin, so that people know who they are listening to.
Yeah, sure. So I started my journey 20 years ago. I was fascinated with human behavior and just purely based on trying to understand myself and why my brain was doing what it was doing. And through my research, I found that in my 20s, I was struggling with depression. And the one key sort of instinct that I had was, if my brain got me there, my brain could get me out. So with my investigation, I just started learning more about what the brain does, and did my first certifications in neurolinguistics, hypnosis, and timeline therapy when I was about 26, 27 years old. And through that journey, it's just evolved into a business I've now had for the last 10 years. And yeah, I go from strength to strength, learning about or sharing with people that your brain has wonderful abilities. And when you just start tweaking little things and understanding little things about how your brain works, you can experience massive outcomes and impacts in your life.
Absolutely. So, Kevin, just to understand for the audience, you talk about this thing called using confidence and everything in the workplace. A lot of people who are educated, they are into, you talk about cultivating confidence, the process and all. A lot of the people in the workplaces, they already are working, they know about their job, they are experts, like you are expert in your field. Why do we need to put so much of emphasis on confidence in the workplace? Isn't it a given that people will be confident and they know about themselves, they know about their job, they know about performance, especially leaders, managers, all those top guys?
No. So, and that's the strange thing. One of the things that we've noticed, and someone who works with executives all the time, is confidence is not obvious. And usually people don't know how to cultivate confidence. So, as much as we see people, in a position, someone who's really fluent at being able to speak in front of people, someone who seems really competent at their job, doesn't necessarily mean that they are. And I speak from experience because I was caught in that scenario where I was very often in front of people, but felt very inadequate and I felt almost like the imposter in the room. And when I started understanding, what your brain is doing and how to do that, and what that means, was you start really understanding that confidence in itself comes from two spaces. And there's lots of information about that. But Albert Bandura, a well-known psychologist in the 80s, speaks about the importance of self-efficacy and self-talk. And very often our self-efficacy comes to the forefront because we are, like you say, we can do the job. We know how to do the job. Half the time we have the degrees, we have the background to be able to do this job. But what we don't necessarily have is the self-talk. And that's right there is, where you are starting understanding. Once you have self-efficacy and self-talk supporting each other, that in itself cultivates confidence. Now, usually what we find is sometimes when people don't have the efficiency and the efficacy of doing their jobs, they can speak a big game. So you find often people are arrogant, or they come across as overconfident, or they promise something they don't deliver on. And that usually shows you that they're overconfident and they can't back it up with substance. But when you have someone who's absolutely efficient at what they do, and you back that up with how you speak to yourself, you immediately come across as confident and being able to deliver on what you say you can. And that's where confidence lies, because people sometimes they'll say they're confident, they may even sound and look it, but they don't. That's not necessarily true.
Absolutely. So the problem is not with the expertise, the problem is something else.
Sometimes, yes, sometimes when someone's speaking talking the talk, but the evidence of their outcome is not supported, it's not congruent. There's something misaligned, and usually when that happens, you can immediately go at the self-efficacy and see, is this person efficient at saying what they say they can do? And until they are, they need to support what they say they can do, because those two areas don't necessarily mean the same thing.
Absolutely. And what is the process that you tell about, Kevin, to gain confidence to these people who are so-called experts then?
So first off, we have to know that someone who wants to learn about confidence must want to do it. So you can't pull someone down a rabbit hole and expect them to change. When someone wants to change, what we start doing is we look at your self-talk narrative. And usually self-talk narrative is the very voice you hear in the back of your head the moment you're about to do something. And when you start investigating and understanding how people use their language and start paying attention to their language, as a coach, and this is what I do with people all the time, is I ask a question and I just listen. And by listening, people divulge and they share information about themselves because they use language in a certain way. So as an equipped coach who works in neurolinguistics, you start understanding how people put information together. You really understand whether they are coming from a position of confidence or they just speak about it as if it's something that they can do and it's not necessarily real. And when you find that, you start unpacking where you need to start with confidence. And then you gradually start doing exercises. And we go through a series of exercises that help you understand why would you self-sabotage, where do you cultivate confidence, how to cultivate confidence. And it takes time because, shifting an identity is hard. And it comes with process and action, but it's not impossible.
Absolutely. So are these sort of people who lack that sort of a confidence, are they good for the team, not so good for the team? And does artificial intelligence work in their favor, or it is against people like this? How should we look at AI in terms of confidence for people in the workplace, especially people who fall under this category?
Well, I've written a book called The Future of Work is Human. And from the research and the investigation, AI is wonderful because it can get information really quickly. It can support everything that you're wanting to showcase and share. But the moment you take that out of the equation, if you as the person involved using the AI can't substantiate and back up what you are saying, then you're not saying it, the AI is saying it. So AI is wonderful because it can help you process information quicker. It gets to ideas quicker. It can give you ideas on how to critically think and become creative in scenarios. But the actual implementation and the real life, the real time experience that we have when something happens, if you don't have the know-how as the human part of this equation, and you don't know how to effectively take the AI information and partake on that, you're going to get stuck. So does AI work well with teams? Absolutely. It can give you great ideas. It can make things move faster. But the actual implementation and how that evolves and shows, that is a human thing. And unfortunately, as humans, we're not going to get away from that.
Absolutely. So that brings me to this term called contagious identity. It's also the name of your company. So when we look at this what help us understand first, what is this contagious identity all about?
So, contagious identity was something that I discovered. It wasn't something I created. And the only difference is through my research and my work and my discovery, I gave it a name because now I know what it is. And because I work in a leadership capacity a lot of the time, we take leaders through processes and programs over a period of time. And where we start and where we end is like night and day. And we've been doing this for a number of years now, and I've been doing it with in a specific group with specialist leaders. So we look at specialists, we take them through this process, and something happens when they go from who they are to where they want to be. And I couldn't understand exactly what it was. And then I started realizing it's the coin and the phrase that I use is a contagious identity. So it's a discovery of when someone really taps into their own authentic power. Now, it has to be your own, because when it's authentic, it's who you are. It's how you do you at the best you can possibly be. With that is a confidence, an unshakable confidence. It's a surety. It's a solid foundation of absolute knowing that this is who you are. And because you have these two pressing authenticity and confidence pushing through, it becomes your personal quiet authority. And suddenly you move from going through a process of not sure, not completely identifying to it what that is, but then suddenly 6 to 8 months later, you've become a different person. You have a different set of beliefs. You stand proudly and confident in how you showcase who you are and what you do in the world. And suddenly you've taken on a whole new identity and transformation of this identity. And you look back at your life 6 months ago and you go, wow, I can't believe that's where we started. So this contagious identity it's a beautiful process to go on a journey of self-discovery of how do we actually help and inform people that everyone has their own authenticity that they can tap into. The question is, are you willing and vulnerable enough to want to go there? And that's what contagious identity is.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, if we look at the leader's position here, if we have a lot of people in the team with less confidence, and you want to build up that whole concept about transformation, fostering collaboration, sharpening communication, alignment within teams, do you think with people with less confidence, more relying on AI, not too much of themselves when they are without whatever tools they are supporting? How do we create that contagious identity? Also, the bigger problem is if the leader himself or herself have this whole problem about lack of confidence or any other syndrome that is possible. What should this leader do? What should the upper leaders do when this sort of a situation prevails in an organizational team or somewhere else?
Well, I think the first step is to recognize that if you are a leader, one of the sayings that I have, leaders create leaders. If you're not actively in your environment creating leaders from the people who work with you, you're not a leader, right? And I know it's a strong statement, and many people kind of look at me and frown upon that. But essentially, great leaders create great leaders. So that's step number one. The second step is to radically accept, and it's one of the processes that we actually go down, is in psychology, they call it radical acceptance, because you have to know you are where you are. So if you have a set of results and you don't like what you see, you have to radically accept the fact that you can point fingers, you can moan, you can have a very pessimistic outlook to the situation, but you have to radically accept it. And until you do, it won't change, right? So it simple, but it's sometimes quite challenging for people to acknowledge that, this is something that has to happen with me first, and we can't anticipate change happening with people when I'm part of the change that needs to occur. So, from a leadership perspective, whether you're your top senior manager, top executive leader, all the way down to just team leader position, somewhere there, every single person really has to understand, if I'm a great leader, I'm creating leaders. And what does that mean in this environment? And how do I start with myself? And if we start there, it's a really good frame to start with, and a really good position to start off with, because leadership in itself starts here. It doesn't start anywhere else.
Absolutely, absolutely, Kevin. So you talk about stepping into our future self.
Yeah.
How should I know? How would I know in terms of AI and everything else? What is my future self? If I don't know what is my present self, I'm still struggling to find out. How do I get into my future self in this moment?
Well, and Ajay, it's a good question, because most people they are quite disconnected from it. So we one of the in coaching, I often ask, if you were to go on a coaching process and you said, okay, in 6 months' time, this is what this is what you would achieve. One of the frames we use is, tell me how far away, just in your mind's eye, how far away is that future that you want to achieve give me a measurement. Maybe it's 10 meters, maybe it's 2 kilometers, maybe it's very far. And they'll break it down into distance, right? So, and the point of why I'm saying this is, people are very disconnected and disassociated to anything that they want to achieve. And as part of my journey that I take people through on a transformative process is, how do we close that gap, and how do we associate you and not disassociate? So the moment you start associating, you're going, okay, cool. If you see it in your mind, it means it's potentially there and relevant to you already. And if it is, let's unpack what your brain is needing you to learn, understand, and what structures and strategies you can start putting in place to be able to get to where you want to go. And when you start unpacking it like that, and that's what the brain, this is the beauty about neurolinguistics and neurosciences, we know the brain loves structure and strategy. And usually when we have this disassociated idea, we don't have a strategy, we don't have a structure to get there. But working with a coach, you start defining that, you start associating to this future identity of who is it that you actually say you want to become. And part of that process is breaking it down into manageable, bite-sized pieces to actually achieve. Because usually it's very far, so it looks very unreachable and out of reach for many people. But when we start stepping into that timeline and we tap into what that future self looks like, you go, okay, so maybe I should start doing that. Maybe I should start seeing this person. I should phone these people. I should learn that. There's strategies and structures that we start tapping into. And the more we do that, the clearer we get to what our future timeline looks like. And that's the space between then and now shortens and becomes real.
Absolutely, absolutely. So a lot of people say, Kevin, that the future of our future is about artificial intelligence. Our future is about so many other sort of intelligence. One should be a prompt engineer, know everything about that. And you say that the future of work is human. So as an individual, what should I do? Should I prepare for a future which is full of AI, or should I prepare for a future which is full about about being human? Tell us a bit about what do you mean by the future of work is human? It's also the name of your book. We want to understand a bit about this.
Well, the thing is, Jay, if we look at the state of the world today, we are, in corporates, in business, in relationships, we are so to a very large degree, we're so stuck behind our devices. So we have this beautiful device between the connection of humans, even though instantly you can speak to anyone across the planet. The point is, what we're starting to realize is humans are starting to understand that, when we're doing business, when we are connecting in sales, nobody wants to speak to a machine. People, they'll go through a prompt and everything, but eventually they want to have a one-on-one engagement. When we are building relationships, if we look at the heightened trend unfortunately, the heightened trend of mental health, it's largely based on the fact that humans are disconnected from each other to that degree. So my prediction is, and this is what the future of the book speaks about, the future of work is human, is to a very large degree, AI is wonderful and it has its place and it's doing great things. But it's my question, and this is what the book really wants to bring a highlight, is what's going to happen to human intelligence? Why are we pretending like human intelligence is just going to wander away? What is going to happen to that? And if we're not paying attention to that, does it mean I'm just going to get dumber and I'm going to dumb myself down because AI is going to do everything? And unfortunately, AI is not going to do everything because I'm a human. As humans, we need love, we need connection, we need significance, we need growth. There's all these needs as humans that we constantly need that aren't simply going to be replaced by AI. So the question is, if you're not actively involved with what that evolution of who you are is becoming and what the primary skills that you need to cultivate as a human for your work for the future, there are people that do that. And if you are the ones doing that, you are assisting the evolution of AI because you're evolving as a human. But if you're not, and you kind of throw your hands up and say, oh, well, AI will do it, you're going to get left behind because the people who are actively evolving as humans are evolving with AI. And we need to actively be more cautious about that.
Absolutely. So who is this book of yours for, Kevin?
It's for anyone that really wants to understand what the future of work looks like. So anyone that's working, and when I say anyone, it's, that usually applies to anyone because as humans, business is involved with humans, right? So for business to go around, we still have to tap in on connecting and having, you and I are having this conversation right now in real time based on the fact that you're there, I'm here, and we're having a connection about this conversation. There's a human connection right there. So the book is for anyone that wants to do that and wants to understand how to do that better. Because what we're seeing is there's a lot of evidence in the world to say, yeah, AI is fantastic. But what are these core critical primary skills that we will need for the future challenges of work? And we look at the human skills that are showcased from research and publications and information that's shared. There are 5 critical skills, and those being critical thinking, creativity, social intelligence, self-management, and attention management. And when we have those primary skills at the forefront of our skill set, we will run the future of business.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's so much to learn about all these things, Kevin, and I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more from you, about your book, also about your podcast, the Lunchtime series, and also perhaps want to be your client. What's the best way for them to do so?
The best way is, as it says on the screen, just go to my website, kevinbritz.com. All my information is there. You can chat to me. You can sign up. And I have calendar links, so you can just set up an appointment. Let's get online. Let's have a chat and see how we can help you move to that future timeline.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.